Over the past few months and weeks, there has been a highly charged discussion in Kenya, in villages, on social media, in kiosks, and everywhere you go. Kenya has introduced a new learning system called competency-based curriculum, CBC, and this curriculum is seeking to replace the older system that was called the 844 system that was introduced in the late 1980s. Now, the issue that arises with the CBC is that many parents in the country who have children, especially in the early education programs, primary school and pre-primary education, feel that the new curriculum is overbearing on them because as opposed to the older 844 system, CBC requires that parents take a significantly larger section of interacting and even educating their children because under CBC, parents are having to help their kids with various parts of the learning system that is mostly practical. Today, I am with one of Kenya's most notable public educators and a professor of the University of Nairobi, Herman Manyora, to help me understand, is love really what we need to see more between parents and children here in the country? Whether you're watching from the country, whether you're watching us from the diaspora or wherever you're watching us from on the continent, welcome to Let's Talk Love Kenya. My name is Kimathi, and on this show today, we will be delving deep into what is it that is lacking. Is there a gap of love between parents and children? Or what is causing this uproar that we notice in Kenya today? Parents complaining that we are just being asked to spend a little bit too much time with these children. Professor Manyora, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Kimathi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, here's the issue.
Yes.
There is CBC, a new learning system in the country, a change that many thought would be revolutionary. But once it was implemented, I think that started in 2017, parents started to complain. And we've seen pictures crop up on the internet that CBC is asking me to do this, and CBC children, CBC parents, the idea is there is an air of dissatisfaction. And if we can just maybe circle back to the question that is the question we ask on this channel every time, love. Is it that Kenyan parents are running away from having to bond and love and raise their children in the ideal way? Is it that the problems, many of the problems, Prof, we see today in the country arise from the issue of parents having very little contact with their school-going children?
On the face of it, one will wonder why, if you are told to spend time with your children, you would complain instead of being happy. These are people you are supposed to love. Actually, these are people who are supposed to constitute your life. How then would you be complaining if you are asked to spend a little more time with them?
But that's what we see on a national scale.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, on the face of it, then you'll wonder. But if you go inside, you see it's not just as simple as love. Yes, with love, you'll do a lot of sacrifice. But how does a parent who didn't go to school, and the majority of the parents perhaps never went to school, how do you handle things of an academic nature? It doesn't now reduce to love. You may love your son all there is, your small little girl. But the question they are asking are beyond your comprehension just because of your background in terms of, so it's not just love. Other parents don't even have the time because we live in a country where people live from hand to mouth. So here you are, you spend the whole day looking for a job, perhaps you didn't get, you walked 15 kilometers back home. Do you think staying with your child is just a question of love?
Are you one of those Kenyan parents staging a protest against CBC? Because you sound like you're with those parents.
I am an informed Kenyan. I have dismissed CBC not for the reasons I'm giving. I have dismissed CBC because I don't see I don't understand what it's supposed to do. It is something that we must abandon immediately.
Right, but
it doesn't make sense.
The issue that is raising,
as an education person, it doesn't make sense. But I think your question was about the parents complaining instead of being happy to be with their children. And I was saying there could be reason beyond love.
Yes, there could.
Yes.
But is CBC, the question really from me is CBC, is it uncovering a discussion that we've not had? Is it raising the carpet and we notice that there's stuff we've been sweeping under? Because the question is it that parents are so uneasy? Because this is an argument from a certain quarter of experts, that maybe these parents are so uneasy about having to spend time with their kids, having to keep up, because raising children, I believe, Prof, you have kids, is an incredibly, demanding work. Is it that parents are running away from that? And even before you answer, Prof, if then there is a likeliness that some parents are feeling we take kids to school to get them off our hands, how does that affect the relationship of how we raise our children, still in that context of love?
It is a whole bag of things.
It is.
Including our education, you have to trace it to colonial period. And we started our education in a manner to suggest that you have no role in the education of your children.
Is it right to say that?
That is the basis of the boarding schools. It was felt a child with the parents at home will be engaged in useless African cultural things. They needed to be removed from the parent to go in a boarding school where they could now concentrate instead of remaining home and doing all manner of things and ending in early marriage if they were girls and things of that nature. So that thing has affected us. So the average Kenyan doesn't seem to place his role in the education of the children where it should be. It's like we all surrender this to schools. So
education,
it's an historical problem.
It's an historical problem. And you said it's colonial problem.
Yes.
But in the first world, boarding schools are not as popular as in the global
That's
south.
what I'm saying. When the white man came here, he said our practices were repugnant.
What does
our
that mean?
Our traditions were bad.
Repugnant.
Yeah, our traditions were bad. Our rituals, our customs, everything we did was unchristian, ungodly, not civilized. So to get a child to learn, you remove him from this bad environment, bad African environment. Unamweka boarding school. That is the genesis of the boarding schools. That's why boarding schools are not across the world. That's why I've always argued we should abolish the boarding schools.
Do boarding schools damage children?
Of course they do.
How do they do that?
That's what we are discussing today. Parents surrender and abdicate their responsibility. You get it?
Do you have people your age here in Kenya who went to boarding schools?
Of course, all of us went to boarding schools. Who didn't go to boarding school?
What was your experience?
Of course, we thought it was good, but really, the point we are now discussing is
I went to a boarding
where
school. I
was
didn't
my
like
father and my mother in my education? That's what we are saying. The role of the parent in the schooling of their children in this country is absent because of that colonial approach to education.
And these parents seem to have been enjoying these perks of being removed from this education.
Yes.
And CBC now is saying, no, you have to come back and play a role. You have to learn that your kid curses in class. You have to know that this boy has this... Is it that, children are themselves.
Okay. That is okay.
Are we running away from it?
So, first of all, when something has taken years, you do not uproot it in one day, number one. Number two, that parent you want to stay with their daughter,
or son,
grade 2. They come home after hustling. Let's say, this is a country of hustlers. Somebody has been hustling. They are coming home at 10. The child is already asleep. It presupposes a social arrangement with an ideal family. You get it? An ideal family of people who live in time to kiss their children. Ah, darling, have a nice day. You go to school, then you pick them, darling. They come, you hug them. That's an ideal family situation. Does that obtain in this country? The answer is certainly no. Very few Kenyans could have the time to be with the children in the morning when they are going to school, pick them from school, walk with them back home, do homework with them, play around with them, and tuck them in bed.
You said it. Now, Prof, let me ask you. You said it's sort of a privilege to give your child this kind of attention and presence.
It's good.
Yet, ideally, like you say, even science shows us, parents need to be present.
Correct.
Strongly present in their children's upbringing throughout those formative years. And you're saying now most parents here today cannot afford it. And maybe, yes, it's an accident of birth, as the Greek would say it. It's the way things are.
Yes.
But are there alternatives that Kenyan parents can use today around CBC that can help you be able to instill that love in your child growing up, even if you don't have the time, even if you
what we
work
must start doing,
60 hours a day?
There are things we can do to move in that direction. Number one, we must abolish the boarding school. Number two, parents must take children to the school, the next school. Nobody. In many of these European countries, you take the child to the next school because they are all equal. So, question of equity and equality within our schools. Let's have day schools. In America, most of them are community schools. Let's have day schools, well equipped. The money we are wasting on boarding should be used on nice day schools. Now you are moving the children closer to the parents. You get it? So they are there. Anatoka tu hapa, anakuja hapa. At least one of you will be around. That's the first thing you do. Secondly, we will need to, like I've said, equip our schools very well. So that the children enjoy school. If children enjoy school, when they come home, they want you to continue with that. Like in most developed countries, children want you to read stories to them when they come home. But much more fundamentally, we must work on our economy so that we are not a country of hustlers. So that a majority of Kenyans live a normal life, have a normal family life, where you live home in not ungodly hour. You leave home at 7 with your child. They go to the next school there. Hi, darling, bye-bye, see you in the evening. You come, again, there's no traffic. You know, there's so much we need to do to create a normal environment in which this animal called CBC could be.
Talking of animals, Prof, there's another elephant in this room.
Yes.
Are these hustlers having too many kids? Because one thing you see about the first world, and I'm going to use it again, if you go to Japan, if you go to Scandinavian countries, or even the US, people have fewer children. Nuclear families are sustainable, but if you come here, it seems like the poorer you get in Africa and other places, the more kids you have.
Children belong to God.
How do you read 10 children to split?
Children belong to God. God provides them. Get as many children. Don't usisikize hii ujinga ya wazungu. By the way, on a very serious note.
But mathematically, Prof, yes, I understand that. Yes. Is this sustainable? Because it's African to have kids and kids were wealth.
When God gives you children,
can we afford to say children are from God, yet money that brings these kids up is not from God, Prof? Is that what you're saying?
Children, love your children. If they are 10, have 10. If God gives you 5, have 5.
With all due respect, Prof, you seem privileged. You had a good education.
Yes.
There are people your age who never had that kind of opportunity.
But
yet they have more kids than you.
You know, it's a philosophy of life.
Is it?
You are now challenging my philosophy of life. I do not believe in the nonsense of how many children one should have. I don't believe in that nonsense. Secondly, and I was telling you now, much more serious, for our country to sustain its population, it must reproduce itself at about 2.2. There are countries in the world today that cannot reproduce themselves.
They say China is dying.
Yeah, there are countries today in the world. In the next 30, 40 years, there are countries where for every one person of that country, there will be 4 foreigners. In America today, we are having almost 30% people who are not quite Americans.
But they're bringing their own chairs. Prof, if we live in Kenya today and we have 2 chairs, and it's you and me, yet we decide to have 6 more people join us.
Yes.
And these people don't come with their chairs. Don't you see? Yes, there will be numbers in us, but there will be a problem that 6 people will be upstanding.
No, my friend. Let Africans have children. Wacha watu wazae. Watoto wengi. Wacha watu. And again, there's this thing that it may sound stupid. It may sound unpopular. Who tells you everybody must go to school?
Well, the economy.
Who says?
You need to survive.
This is another myth. Countries like America. You know how many literate people there are in America?
It's a rich country, Prof.
How many people are
illiterate? The government takes care of people.
How many people are illiterate? Who can't read and write? It is a myth that everybody must go to school. That myth is what is spoiling education here. This country has been pursuing a stupid policy of 100% transition. Then you pack 100 children in a class. Why can't 30 of them not even go to school so that this 70 can have good education to make the country better, to benefit even those 30 who didn't go to Form 1? Instead of all of them 100 ending into the ditch.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, it seems we have strayed away from today's discussion, Prof, but it's all within the question of is education limiting the love that children have with their parents? Is it affecting the relationship, Prof, as we wind up?
The best a man has should be reserved for his children. There's no better way of showing love to your children than giving them the best you can offer them.
Isn't spending
And
time with them the best?
that normally would be the best education you can give your children, which also means the most attention you can give your children. That shows you love your children, okay? But again, we must temper this with reality. And the reality is, we are a country of hustlers. And a country of people who are hustling may not be the right place to have an education system that imposes on the parents the responsibility of being with their children when they don't even have that time and the energy. You walk to work, walk back from work, get home when the children are already asleep. Nobody can blame you, because if you chose to stay with them, then they will die of hunger. They may not even go to school. So the balance, therefore, is, in my view, something we'll need to look at and not challenge parents that because you're going to have time for your children, then you don't love them. No, I don't. That is a poor way of looking at life.
Yes. All right, you've heard it, folks. That is the discussion we've had today with the man himself, Professor Herman Manyora, who believes that, yes, parents need to spend time with their children. Of course, love and bonding needs to be fostered from early on in a child's life. But he also argues that in countries like Kenya and in Africa, where people need to get up early to go find the bread and come back late, it's just a luxury to spend that amount of time with your kids. So until next time, where we continue to discuss various high-octane topics around love and unity in the country, join us every time, every week here on Let's Talk Live KE. My name is Kimathi. I'll see you next time.